on Grand Lake Road in Dordt Highway.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Whatever way, how long ever it's going to take to get there. So.
Okay, Daddy.
Man, you sound sexy, baby.
Thanks for joining. We had a little difficulty in technology with all that's behind the scenes here, but I just want to say that because you are here, you're going to hear from inside the voice and the mind of a predator. My name is Sheriff Chris Swanson, Sheriff of Genesee County in Flint, Michigan. To my right is one of our ghost investigators, Deputy Tori Dallas. You may have seen her on the last town hall that we had, and all the apps and the portals that people use, the predators use to get into the kids of our country and around the world. To my left is Officer Dave Dwyer. He's also a retired lieutenant from this office and left here to go to the Attorney General's office and now works for Davison Township Police Department. We're so thankful that he was able to join us. And all three of us are going to give you the psychology of what predators think and what they do. We're going to give you the playbook on their end. You're going to hear voicemails and phone conversations. You're going to hear confessions. And then we're going to break them down. And in the end, Dave is going to talk about a bombshell case that I know if you're from Michigan or any part of this country, you're going to remember. But this is what happens. This is what these predators use to lure, to convince, to manipulate, to groom kids across this country and around the world. So send your questions in. We're going to get to them at the end, but we're going to have a conversation. And you're going to learn what goes on inside the mind of a predator. Suspect predator number one. This is a man who's in his 60s. Now, we're not going to identify any of these because that's not the focus of this town hall. Those have already been identified. But we are going to use pieces of these cases that are adjudicated and dealt with, and we're going to keep the content focused on the psychology. And each one of them is unique in and of itself. So it's not 4 examples of the same thing. It's 4 predators with 4 different psychologies. And here's our first.
Here's what I would like to do and see if we can work this out. I'd like to get high with both of you.
Oh, yeah, we got some good bud right now.
So, and if you and I play, I'm okay with that. As to playing with her, that may come later, or I gotta be comfortable there. I mean, I would like to get high with you guys. I mean, that would be very cool.
We were going to get a place in Grand Lake.
Okay, you have money to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. And you were going to call us, or you said that you would reimburse us though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's $125 an hour, but you said you wanted to do a couple hours, or?
No, I was thinking 3 or 4 hours. You sound hot, baby.
I'm pretty hot, and my girl is super hot.
And you guys like older married guys?
Yes. I like the guy that knows what he's doing in the bedroom.
Well, I've been told I do, so.
Oh, good. And I've been seeing all those videos that you've been sending, and I can't wait to see the real thing.
Alright, call me back.
Okay, Daddy.
Alright,
bye.
Block, though.
Okay.
Night.
The victim in this case was a 14-year-old female. Predator in his 60s, grandfather, father. This is what they used. The first thing that comes to mind is he downplayed the word sex, and he used the word play. Not going to have sex. I'm going to play. What do you think of that?
Well, I want to say the conversation, him talking, was a lot more downplayed. And he was using words like play. It's like he didn't want to say those, bad things. His text, however, he was really, really vulgar. But I think it's, like I said last week, it's a lot easier to be behind a computer and you can say and do things that you normally wouldn't do face to face. or over the phone. So yeah, he tried to minimize it by saying, you know, let's just play together. Let's do that. Let's smoke some weed together. But what he was texting was so vulgar. And I can say some of them, but the rest of it, they're just not meant for TV.
We're going to get to some of these texts, but Dave Dwyer, I mentioned his experience. He is, and I say this, and I say it emphatically, he is a world-renowned polygraph operator. He's been a polygraph operator. He's an interrogator. He's an interviewer at the highest level around the country. About how many polygraphs have you given in your entire career?
Close to 1,000.
And of those 1,000, how many of them are sex predators?
Half.
So when we bring up something like the minimizing of bad acts, is that a common thing?
It is, and hearing the word play in deviant sexual communications on the internet, these type of folks use that word play all the time, even with adults. So they have play rooms, which is really where you can hire prostitutes or communal type of sexual activities. That we have playtime, we have play rooms, we have special play vehicles, and this is common within that subculture, which is sexually deviant.
Do they say those words to try to make the victim comfortable or trick their own mind that they're doing evil?
Great question. I think, I don't know, but I don't believe it has anything to do with the victim, because these folks are narcissists. They're all about themselves. So this is part of just a communication that the vast majority of us are unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
So it would be no different than a very people talking on CB or people using text.
It's a subculture.
It's a subculture, and that's play rooms. Play is a subculture word in that subculture for sex.
Could it be part of the fantasy?
Absolutely.
So he uses wordplay. The second thing is he talks about money. You know, we talk about folks that have the ability to control, and they use money. Here, he believes he's talking to a 14-year-old victim, and money's no issue.
He made it very well known that he could take care of me. There was two people involved. There was a 22-year-old offering up a 14-year-old.
Now, mind you, these are all decoys, so these aren't real victims. This is a sting operation that we've done, so I want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, there's no children that have been harmed in any way.
Right.
Once, in the very beginning, he was talking to what he thought was the 22-year-old. When the 22-year-old said, hey, I have a 14-year-old, well, he was so intrigued. Literally within 5 minutes, when I said, I have a 14-year-old, what do you think? Within 5 minutes, it was, are you fertile? Are you both fertile? Most people would be like, oh my God, no, I don't want that, but are you fertile? And then the deviant said he started talking about everything that he wanted to do. Finally, when he got to talk to the 14-year-old, because she's in school, it was the 22-year-old, he didn't want to talk to her anymore. It was the 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was going to tell you, it's vulgar, he said, I'm looking for a cum slut, and I'm willing to pay $1,000.
A 14-year-old.
14-year-old, yes. And what's so shocking and sickening is that he had his own family, that I'm sure he put his daughters on a pedestal, but you're willing to take a 14-year-old child and use them like a toy, a cum slut.
A piece of property.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned
I'm
they're
gonna pay for it.
narcissist. Explain what a narcissist is.
Well, this is somebody who thinks that they're always right. They think that they're the smartest person in the room. They are closed to critique. He, without knowing who he is, knows that he has power over these folks. He also knows the brutal truth that people who are engaged, the women who are engaged in this type of activity, they're not multimillionaires.
Yeah.
They're not wealthy, and he knows that it's just for him, $1,000 is pennies.
Yeah.
And while I don't know his background, if he can throw out, I can spend $1,000. He's got $1,000 to spend, and he is able to manipulate through his through the poverty of the people that he's talking to, without ever meeting them, because he knows who he's talking to. He's not. He's talking to our most vulnerable.
So interestingly enough, without knowing some of those details, he is in a power position. He does have the ability to pay whatever, and he is used to using his money.
Yeah, you know his background.
100%.
Yeah,
When
right.
you nailed that, I'm like, that's it. Now, there was a part of that conversation that talks about how long he's going to be there, and you're thinking hour and a half. But what did he
Yeah.
want?
He wanted 3-4 hours. You know, he wanted a long time to engage and control the time.
Control.
He wanted to have that time, and he was going to set it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was all on his terms.
Now, interestingly
okay.
enough about this case, it wasn't a one-night conversation.
No.
How long did we communicate with this predator?
3 weeks.
3
Over
weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
3 weeks. At any time, he could have said, you know what, I don't know why I'm doing this. 3 weeks, kept communicating with us. What do you have in your hand?
Some of the conversation, there's the conversation with the 22-year-old that's thick and disgusting, but this was the 14-year-old, and there's a lot of things in here, but one of the things that really struck me as deviant, it's all deviant, was he wanted to know, how old were you when you lost your virginity? I said 12. Who was it with? I said it was a family member. He said that I want to know more about this. This excites me.
He literally said, this excites me.
Yes.
Why would somebody say that? Somebody who's a father and a grandfather themselves.
Well, I personally think he's just saying that. While it does excite him, I think the bigger issue is he wants to know someone that hurt her. And he identified already that a family member hurt her, took her virginity, and this wouldn't have been a consensual, loving relationship. This was power. And he's going to, this might be the first time, but he's already thinking about the second, third, fourth time, and he's going to be able to, the goal is to ultimately control you.
Yeah, I mean, it's right here. Please tell me more. This is kind of exciting and makes me a bit more comfortable.
After you just disclosed that you were sexually assaulted at 12 years old by a
12
family
years
member.
old by a family member.
And it's almost like sales.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to build rapport with her and then identify her vulnerabilities, and then the goal ultimately is to manipulate that for his own sexual gratification.
Now, you mentioned sales. I've said this before, that human trafficking, and that is commercial sex, by definition, under the age of 17, whether it's willing or unwilling, it is a business. And people that are in that business, that are victims, are seen just as property. And the people that are in there as property can generate, to a pimp, $200,000, $250,000 per year per person. Especially the younger they are, the more money they draw. So we have minimizing what's going to happen using words like playroom. We have the financial backing to show that he's got the means to do it, and we have the control tactics. We've got the text messages that spanned over 3 weeks. When the time came that the location was identified, how long did it take for him to show up to the Decoy?
Not long at all. I wasn't even, we were surprised how close, we gave him a location. I mean, he was out in his car, trolling the area, wanting to know, like, when, he was ready to pounce. He was ready to come.
So over 3 weeks, these conversations were spinning in his head while he was at work. He was having dinner with his wife, while he was with his friends. He just couldn't. How and why can't these predators shut it off?
Because it's an addiction. And we'll talk about that with one of the other here soon.
Yeah.
But it's no different than alcohol or drugs, except for you're harming other people too. And this is a massively victim crime. This is a crime of just terrible.
So we are going to play another clip. Now, mind you, these are real clips from cases that we've worked. They are cases that do not involve an actual victim, if you've just tuned in. We're going to finish this Predator number 1 with a closing conversation. Check this out.
Man, you sound sexy, baby.
Oh, thank you. I've been told that a lot.
Now, what does she sound like?
Well, she's right here.
I'm right here.
Hey, baby.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, good. A little nervous, but we'll get over it, so.
It's okay.
All right. I know you keep saying that, so.
All right, we'll see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, Daddy.
I'm a little nervous, but we'll get over it. In those text messages, there are pictures that he's sent of his genitalia. There's videos that he sent. These text messages are vile. And as you look at these, would you read that, Tori?
This is of the predator. This is to the predator talking to the 22-year-old. Does she live with you, or will her parents hunt me down? How old of a guy have either of you had? Have you been with any married men or married men? Reply was, we live together and her parents have been out of the pic. He says, okay, that helps. I can fuck both of you multiple times. Just wondering, this is still the predator, just wondering if it's okay if I come in both of you. This is this 14-year-old. You okay with my age? Are you on birth control? Yes, Daddy. Your age concerns me, but also it excites me. May play with your friend first, and as long as you start, we can start. I want to preface it is that he wanted him to be called Daddy. That's what he preferred. He wanted the conversation, he'd like to be, please refer to me as Daddy. So.
Final thoughts in this case, why did he ask that? To be identified as Daddy to somebody he doesn't know.
Again, I think it is about power. I think it feeds his ego to be called Daddy, and it feeds his ego to have someone submit to him.
Predator number 2. You're going to hear a voicemail, and it was a voicemail that was sent to one of our undercovers, and it involves a 30-year-old male who cut a deal, and you're going to see how he minimizes what he's about to do. Check this out.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hey, sweetheart. I'm in Grand Blanc, too, and if you're down by the highway, if we hook up, did you mind if I get you, come back to my apartment, and then I can drop you back off? If it wasn't for the whole fucking age shit, I wouldn't give a shit, but just let me know what's up, because I'm still kind of iffy on it, but I don't know. Just get back to me and let me know what's up. And remember, I'm not paying for any services. I'm just giving you this money for free. Like we're going to suck and fuck for free.
This is a 13-year-old victim. 13. That he said he's not paying for anything. He's just giving the money to her for free. What do you think of that?
I think it shows, again, that he knows that she's not going to be a wealthy person. Now, obviously, he is not uber wealthy, right? He's going to only give her $100. That said, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room because he doesn't know the law. And so he believes falsely that if I can give you the money as a gift and the sex is consensual.
Even at 13 years old.
Exactly. He's already changed the law between his ears. And it just shows he's a fool, obviously, but because he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, and that's probably how he runs his whole life, no one can tell me, I'm just going to go ahead, I'll have sex with her for free, and then I'll give her $100.
He literally lays out his own personal defense.
Correct.
And on top of that, the victim's 13, he's in his 30s. There's no consensual sex at 13.
Of course not.
And when you look at that conversation and you look at the age difference and the fact that he's trying to minimize it, do you think he's trying to use the law as a way for her to feel comfortable again, or for him to justify his bad acts?
I think it's for him. I think
right.
I think he's prepping himself for potential arrest.
Yeah.
He knows that he's on the bubble. He's iffy about it.
He even said it.
He's wrestling internally and externally about committing a crime, and he knows it's a crime.
Do these guys know that it's wrong?
Absolutely.
But they do it anyways.
They do it anyways.
Tell us about this case.
Well, this is a case that a guy was looking to have sex, but he wanted, a 13-year-old. Once he found out that the 13-year-old was available, he wasn't like, oh my God, I want away. It was well, how much for? Is it extra? And then was really on the point of it's a donation. Kept saying it's a donation. And to make the 13-year-old, because it was a 13-year-old talking, at this point he's like, honey, I'm not paying you. You have to understand, I'm not paying you. It's a donation for your time. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, you really, that's what he was stuck on. It almost was, if I'm giving you a donation, it's not against the law.
Yeah.
And to where as a 13-year-old, I'm like, oh, wow, you're teaching me something.
Yeah.
And
it goes back to that control.
Yeah.
I know the law. You're okay with it. Let's have consensual sex
Yes.
at 13 years
And
old.
what many people in Michigan don't realize is that the age of 16 is the age of consent in the state of Michigan. So a 50-year-old man can have sex with a 16-year-old girl, and it is actually legal. But 15 is the penalty for that is 15 years.
This case, I want to reiterate that it doesn't matter the age. These different predators, predator number 1, predator number 2, have different reasons to rationalize their bad acts. And the first guy, he thought he was going to help her. He wanted to control her. He wanted to be her daddy. The second guy wanted to make sure that it was consensual, that he wasn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
In case that the victim thought maybe she was doing something wrong.
he's arrogant. That's the one thing I would say about this guy.
Yeah.
Talking to him, he was so arrogant. And it just kind of stood out in my mind. I mean, not the brightest one, but just so arrogant.
Controlling.
Like, oh, God, yeah.
Think this was his first time?
No.
Do we normally catch people on their first time?
Nope, we do not, unfortunately.
From your experience of those 500 sexual predators that you've interviewed, and this is a hard thing to even wrap your head around, do they victimize many before they get caught?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because oftentimes they've started as children even. So I'm talking to a guy who's 40, 50 years old, and his first time dominating someone in a sexual way oftentimes is 13, 14 years old, where he's sexually assaulting a family member.
13, 14, and they're still the aggressor.
Correct.
Somebody younger, they put in control, or somebody that's vulnerable in their world.
Correct. And of course, unfortunately, many of these folks were sexually assaulted themselves.
I also want to add with this is that he also tried to give me a tip is don't tell people you're 13. I would have been I would be there right now. We would be doing things had you not have told me your age right away. So next time, don't say you're 13.
So he's not trying to, he's trying to help you for the next
Yes,
time
yes.
an adult male wants to have sex with
Yes.
you. During our investigations about how many people do we chat on one different app?
Personally, I know myself, probably 50, 60.
And many of them go down that road before they even realize what they're doing. And some of them, we just don't have time to catch them, or else we would have more arrests.
Yes. I mean, we
'Cause they just
usually
keep
do
coming.
we usually have 3 chatters, and so,
Yeah.
I mean, if we had several,
Yeah.
I can't imagine how many predators we would catch.
Before we go to our next predator, you might be asking yourself, why are they talking about some of the things they do? Because it's more important that you get the information than we just get more people who are here to assault our undercovers. I want this to scare the heck out of predators that have these underlining desires and have these predisposed ideas of to hurt somebody, so they can go and help and they don't have more victims. We already know this from our experience that there are people that are being victimized right now in this country and around the world by these exact types of predators. So make no mistake, the information that you're hearing now, you need to share it, you need to have conversation about it. I told you it's harsh, but we're only halfway through. The next case is the driving force many times for people to act out sexual deviancy. This is a predator in his 30s during a confession. Check this out.
Porn I've been watching lately was either a fantasy has been, which I can't believe I'm saying this because it sounds hillbilly as fuck. Younger sister, stepsister that just turned 16.
We have viewers now. I just want to welcome Texas, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Washington, New York. the driving force of these deviants is not limited by state lines, is it?
No, of course not.
What is the driving force in many cases?
The driving force is their own sexual desires that have consumed them in such a way that they're willing to commit crimes to meet their own sexual gratification.
What fertilizes that gratification many times?
Pornography. I know we don't want to say oftentimes that there's differences between our genders, but generally in the bell, men are more visual and they're sexually stimulated in a more visual way than women. So pornography feeds that, but eventually those images, they're man-pleasing. This isn't in the context of a loving relationship. They're specifically designed and played out through images, sexual images, to please men. They're man-pleasing images, and it desensitizes us. So we have, as men, all these deviant images in our head. Well, those create arousal. And so a loving context of a sexual relationship isn't going to arouse the person once they become a certain amount of addiction in between those ears. And so they'll have to focus on some of those images that they've seen. Well, they get desensitized and desensitized and desensitized. And eventually, some of those images, they want to explore. They want to see younger people. They want us to have Lolita, which Lolita is, a young woman, and so they want this Lolita type of experience, and eventually they're going to act out on that, and they do, and it's horrific.
So you talk about addictions. We are all familiar with addictions in one way or another, and as a medic, there's a dopaminergic effect when certain triggers are triggered: food, music, sex, pornography. Those dopaminergic responses, there's a dump of adrenaline. There's a dump of a euphoria, right? And like any other addiction, once you hit that peak and you keep doing it, eventually that peak gets higher and higher and higher, whether it's heroin, pills, cocaine, crack, it doesn't matter. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your thought about pornography driving many of these people into sexually assaulting kids?
But I think it's just like Dave said, I think once they start seeing porn, they want to, some of this porn is graphic, and they have a loved one. They don't want to do this certain things to their loved one, so I want to reach out to a stranger or do certain things to somebody they don't know. So the more they see porn, they want to act out some of these things. But I don't want to maybe do it with my loved one. I want to do it with somebody else. And I've seen that a lot, or I've heard of that a lot. We had one case where somebody was coming to meet a young boy. He was married. He's claimed he's like, I'm not homosexual. But it started off, he blamed it on porn. He said, I started watching porn, and then I had such an addiction, the regular porn wasn't good enough anymore. So then he started watching gay porn, and he wanted to act it out. So he said, had it not have been for watching that porn, I thought it was fascinating.
So on your text messages that come through back and forth, how many of them involve them sending pornography to what they believe is a 15, 14, or 13-year-old?
A few. I mean, a lot of them are quick interchanges, but I've had a couple, somebody else here has had a couple, where the perpetrator will send what they think is a child porn and say, let's watch this together, or watch this and tell me what you think of it.
Which shows the difference in our genders, too, because men are visually stimulated. Falsely, these ding-dongs believe that sending a picture of their own genitalia will somehow make a woman, excited.
Yeah.
Which we don't really work like that.
No.
So we do have some differences. Men are excited by seeing images. Generally, there's exceptions, but generally, women are not addicted to porn.
Yeah, and it does happen. almost every conversation that I've had, or other two investigators have who deal with these chats, you always get those photos. You always do. And it's like within minutes, like, here, let me show you this.
Because they
of
think
themselves.
others want to see that because
Yeah.
they want to see it.
Yeah.
So this is the psychology behind it. This that you're hearing is coming from, how many years do you have on the job?
28.
And how many years do you have as an interviewer, interrogator, polygraph operator?
2000.
So we're talking 21 years. And at the highest level, in fact, our next case is going to prove that highest level that you were involved in. I want to end these first three cases as, again, if you're just joining us now, that these conversations need to be in your own home with your own loved ones. It needs to be in your classrooms with your church, because there is nobody immune to where a predator can go. And the psychology that we are talking about, it's nonstop. There's no days off. There's no holidays. There's no times where they turn it off. It is a constant addiction that we're talking about. And that's the message we want to send. Our fourth and final case was one that Dave was not only involved in, but he was what we call the officer in charge. It's a case that this state knows about, and it's a case that this country knows about. Tell us about our next case.
Well, I spent the last 7 years as employed by the Department of Attorney General, Michigan Department of Attorney General. I just recently left there. I was their chief of investigations. And during that time, I was the lead investigator on the Michigan State University investigation as it pertained to Larry Nassar. I wasn't in charge of his criminal investigation. I was in charge of the investigation into Michigan State University. But because of that, I interviewed Larry Nassar. And he is, essentially, he is the worst sexual predator that we've had in our lifetime in the state of Michigan.
He's listed as a sex serial rapist.
And what he was, and who he is well, obviously he's a monster, but he was a doctor at Michigan State University. He specialized in the treatment of gymnasts, female gymnasts, and he just horrifically sexually assaulted so many. And their stories are out there. But to sit down in a room and interview him, I had some thoughts about that.
So this is a 2016 era that broke the case. But it is, just like you said before, something that was happening decades before. And during that interview, which had over 260 victims, where they estimate, you had a chance to sit down and talk to him personally.
I did.
What was the most stunning takeaway that you had during that interview?
He was no different than any of these other predators that we've been discussing.
As a doctor?
As a doctor, there was no different, because he was still motivated by his own sexual gratification. He was still a narcissist. He thought he could control the room. He minimized his actions by trying to claim that they were medical procedures. He was literally no different than any of the other scenarios that we've discussed, except for he had the ability to manipulate a large group of people because of his unique expertise in the area of medicine.
So we talked about before the fact that people use money, like financial money. What power did he hold over victims that he used to exploit them?
Hope.
Hope.
Hope. And isn't hope powerful?
Wow.
Hope is powerful, right? Every one of those girls had dreams of being a Michigan State University gymnast, an Olympic gymnast. They had hope, and he was a master at manipulating hope, and he did it for his own sexual gratification. And he's where he belongs, life in prison.
300 years of state prison sentence and 60 years of federal prison. 360 years he was sentenced between the federal government and the state, between Ingham County and Eaton County. When you see a case as big as that, I mean, it went on for years, and you look at cases that have been highlighted now through the Epstein case and Nygaard and all these cases that come about, this is still happening. And there's somebody out there right now that has yet to be identified. So, as somebody who is in the field, but yet has your own personal life, has a family, what do you say to people that are mortified, are scared to death when you see a monster like that who has used their position? This is a small percentage of people, but you got to be aware of every one of them.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
With them, I see opportunity, and I always say is, you know, everybody wants to trust people. Is you know, keep your head on a swivel. You know, don't be
not in the sand.
Exactly. And if somebody, I so believe in a gut instinct. I think everybody has a gut instinct. And if something is happening to you, or you see something and it just doesn't sit well with you, say something. You know, investigate it and make it easy to say something. You know, if somebody comes to you, believe them.
Right.
Or that's the biggest thing is so many people probably don't want to say anything because they've said something before and they weren't believed, or they don't want to be shamed, victim shamed.
You said something interesting during our pre-show. You said that some of these victims don't want to be rude.
Well, and that's the biggest thing is I want to say is teach your children that it's okay to be rude, that it's okay to say no. Because, you know, I've came across a chat with two 9-year-olds. They were watching, you know, they're on YouTube watching video games. That's the popular thing now. People go on YouTube to watch other people play video games. So here there's two 9-year-olds or 8-year-olds. Some guy chimes in and then he takes them, you know, undress. Well, when they asked, like, why did you do that? And she said, because I didn't want to be rude. You know, this was my friend. I didn't want him to be mad at me. And especially right now, I said it, you know, last week in this pandemic where nobody, you know, kids are isolated. They're talking to somebody. I don't want to be rude. Teach your kids that it's okay to be rude. It's okay to say no. Don't force your children to be polite.
And give them an open door that they can come forward. Did he ever admit he was wrong?
No, not to me. He still tried to justify it as a medical
science
procedure. What he did change was he had denied penetration prior to sitting down during his interview with me and now Captain Ryan Pinnell of the Michigan State Police. But he still wanted to take control, and he's a doctor, so he's smarter than me. So it's medical. Believe me, I'm a nice guy.
So, as an interviewer, we talk about theming. So when you went in the interview, not to let all your tactics out, but I'm assuming you played the role of, you tell me, you're a doctor, how did this happen? Which gave him control of the interview. And he used the exact same tactic for the victims, didn't he?
Sure, yeah. He got to the point where he wanted to draw the procedure he was doing for me. Here's a pencil and paper.
So he didn't say like one of our other predators, hey, you know, this is not a crime. He had no reason to explain it's a crime. This is what he believed in his head that he had the power to do.
He's justifying his sexual misconduct by creating a unique that only he can do medical procedure. He's so smart. He's so brilliant. He has designed a medical procedure that only he knows, and
which was invasive.
Which was sexual
crime.
Assault.
That's right.
You know, and he's where he belongs.
Yeah. So before we go to our questions, and you can send in your questions, we have them pouring in right now. I want you to know that these predators, they put themselves in positions to oversee, control, manipulate. They go into different places. They use different channels, different ways to manipulate. Whatever they feel they have the most control, that's what they use. If someone's a gamer and they're a pedophile or a predator, they're going to use a gaming system. If somebody is a physician, they're going to use their position as a medical professional. If somebody is, whatever it is, and that's why we hear Tori say, keep your head on a swivel. Unfortunately, you can't trust everybody, so always be out there watching and protecting. So we're going to take some questions now, and as we prepare for these, we're going to do a final wrap-up. We're going to do a final thought by the time we're done. So stay tuned. We do have the ability to allow you to watch this later on, because we're going to post this on our Sheriff Facebook. We have 3 different stellar news media stations here. We have Mid-Michigan Now out of Flint. We have ABC 12 out of Flint. And we also have Channel 5 of CBS News, WNEM. So you can look at all those. We all work together to get this message out. Jennifer R., how prevalent is this in Genesee County? Go ahead.
The vast majority of my polygraph examinations are Genesee County.
Over
The
500.
vast majority, like almost all. When I was at the Department of Attorney General, polygraph was not one of my primary job assignments, but even while I was working at the Attorney General's office, I was still doing weekly polygraph examinations here in Flint and Genesee County, and again, about half are sexual misconduct cases, and essentially about 9 out of 10 that I view as deceptive, confess to committing the sexual assault. They know, deep down in their heart, they know it's wrong. They know.
So Jennifer, it's not just Genesee County, it's the state of Michigan, it's the country. That's right, it's the fastest growing criminal enterprise on the planet. Unfortunately, there are no safe areas, and I know that's hard to hear, but we're just speaking real. What you do have to be is aware of wherever you are, no matter where you are geographically, you just got to be aware. So the safest place to protect your kids is under your watch for predators that are seeking to destroy. Brian, how do parents get their children to take this serious? Great question, Brian. How do we do it?
I think the biggest thing is that it could be, I think parents, how they're maybe delivering it. Kids are probably thinking, there's not some guy in a van offering me candy. Maybe that's what a lot of kids are thinking. They're like, a lot of kids think they're too smart for this. Yeah, I might get solicited, or people, they don't know they're being solicited. They're just getting, people saying hi to you or offering you stuff. I think kids might be taking it serious, but when they're talking to their parents, they want to minimize it. Otherwise, you're going to take my phone away. So,
can I piggyback off that?
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, I've had to interview many suspects, but I've had to interview oftentimes young people who were sexually assaulted as a police detective. And I can think of one mother in particular said to me, well, why didn't she tell me? And I never met her before. And I said, you never told when it was done to you. Heads down. She's like, you're right.
Okay, repeat that again in case people didn't hear it.
So the question was, how do we tell our children, how do we get them to take this seriously? Well, moms, sisters, aunts, you need to tell them what happened to you. Because when I look to my left and I look to my right, one of you women were sexually assaulted, and it wasn't by a stranger, it was by someone who you were putting next to as a relative, or somebody who has some sort of power over you, and you kept it for all these years. This is the data. We know the truth. And
okay, Dave, that's hard for people to hear on that side. I mean, so throw a life preserver out. If that is them right now, and you're watching this, there's still hope. There's still a healing process that what if somebody has had exactly what you said? Because you've seen it. I've seen it, where people have these suppressed memories. What can they do right now if they want to be free?
Well, they need to talk about it, because they need to get it. You want your kids to know about how to protect yourself. You need to let them know that it's not their fault.
And before we get to you as a lady, when you watch some of the victim testimony at the sentencing of Larry Nassar, those victims that came forward, they were empowered. They talked about their voices now being heard, and it was so uplifting, even during that time. And so there's massive growth that can happen by coming forward. And I know that was tough to hear for those that are out there, but that's why this conversation needs to happen as a lady if somebody, or as a man, if somebody is assaulted in the past and they have not been able to move past? What is your recommendation?
Seek therapy. I mean, therapy to some people is such a negative thing, they don't want to talk about it. But what I have seen, and it's probably happening with that particular case, is like when kids go to, say, Voices, or women go to the Y, and they talk to other females or males, just victims.
Yeah.
And they can see that it's happened to you, and or having just that therapy, they get a voice.
And I think it's important for the folks that are watching this to we are speaking as law enforcement professionals. We are not psychologists. We are not trained in this field, but we do have an expertise in dealing and confronting criminals and guarding, because we're guardians. And I know we want to use the word warrior, but truly what we are is we're guardians. And we want to guard our most precious folks. But we cannot, we're not psychologists. Go to the professionals.
Yeah. And also go to somebody that you feel you have a trusted relationship that maybe can lead you. Maybe you don't know somebody to go to, but you have somebody in your circle that you could pour your heart out and say, I need to talk to you about something. And I'm telling you, that could set you free. So Brian, thanks for the question. I will ask or answer as a dad of 2 boys. The parents and those in the family need to build relationships every single day. So you are the one they come forward to because you've already laid the groundwork. So that's very important. Sarah H., and this is going to be for you, Tori. Why would predators wonder if they could get the girls pregnant?
You know, I really don't know, because I have had that a lot. I've had a lot of predators ask me as a child, are you on the pill? I could think it is they don't want to have a child. They don't want to have that proof.
Got it. Evidence-based? Thoughts?
Potentially, or again, sexual deviancy.
Yeah. I've seen excitement
some
in
men
it.
will want to have sex with someone on their menstrual cycle.
Oh, yeah.
And that is arousing to them because it's again potentially something that they're not having at home with their spouse. It's their own deviant sexual fantasy that they want to do that, and they're going to act out on it. And the hope, in my opinion, from an outsider, not knowing these cases, potentially that person was going to try to schedule a menstrual cycle for sex.
They're that calculated.
Yep.
Pick up that last slide right up there, and I want Tori to read when it comes to her statement about birth control. Go ahead. What does that say?
You on birth control?
Right there. You see it firsthand. And did you send that, or was that sent to you?
That was sent to me.
There you go. So that is your question. That's the reason why a lot of the answers to your question are inside the minds of these predators. Denise V., can internet laws be changed to help protect minors from victimization? That's a grand question because it's global. That's the one thing that the internet has the ability to solve some incredible issues, to give us the wealth of knowledge, but it's got a very dark side, the dark, deep web.
Yeah.
And to answer your questions, I don't think so.
No, I mean, and the internet is great. Social media is great. That's how people are watching us, is on social media. It's great. But there are those pockets of deviancy, and that's where parents need to just get in there, talk to their kids, get on their phones, like we said last week, and just be on there and see what happens. I had somebody call in, said that they took their daughter's phone, who's 12, and just was on her phone as her, just perusing. And somebody chimed in, DM'd her, and started...
Direct message.
Yes, and started communicating, and she couldn't believe it.
At 12 years old. She played the role of her daughter who was 12.
Yeah.
Christy, please explain Snapchat and how predators use it. I will refer you back to the town hall that's on the Genesee County Sheriff's Office Facebook page that we did 2 weeks ago. But to your point, Tori's going to involve Snapchat, and the purpose behind it is to have conversations that people can't see once you open up that snap.
Partly. I mean, now you can save it. there's so many elements to Snapchat, but I'm just going to say it's a social media site that you can go on. The scariest thing I think about Snapchat is the location. So many kids have their location services on. I talked about it last week. I just had a girl, I talked to her, there was a victim. She looked on her daughter's phone. She went through all the friends who were following her. She had her location on. She saw where it was. There was half the people that were following her knew where she was. But that's cool. I want to know where my friends are, so if I go, to the mall, I can say, hey, I want to check in and see who's there.
So a predator can use that as a GPS to your
Yes.
kids. So is there a way to disable the location? There you are.
You just go in and put yourself in ghost mode.
A lot of these questions that I ask are rhetorical because we work them all the time. There's one particular case we did where this was a real case where a 15-year-old victim was snatched off the street after she ran away from home. She was picked up by an adult male. He pimped her out over the weekend. And when we went to go try to find her, she had her phone, and we used the GPS on the Snapchat to find out exactly where she was and rescue her and get her the help she needed. So we use it, and if the police use it, I guarantee that the predators use it. Debbie W., what punishments, jail or prison, are these predators getting in sentencing?
It depends on the sexual act and the age of the child, the minor. The older the minor, the max charge, the max penalty is 15 years in prison. The younger the child, you can get up to life in prison. So it's a gamut. And then I'm talking specifically if there's penetration. There's other types of sexual contact. Touching is a different type of penalty, and again that's going to be decided by the age of the victim and the type of sexual assault that was done to them.
So for a little cheat sheet, in Michigan we have 4 different degrees of sexual assault.
Correct.
Criminal sexual assault, 1st degree, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The 1st and the 3rd are penetration, which Dave mentioned. There's a lot of variables in there. The 2nd and 4th are touching and not penetration. The 2nd is a felony, but the 4th is what we call a circuit court misdemeanor. It's a 2-year misdemeanor. That is groping, touching of the buttocks, rubbing of the breasts on male or female. That's what that's used for. But the one he talks about, CSC 1, 1st degree, that's penetration. That's a life offense, where in Michigan, a life offense is 20 years. But every state is different. Those are the penalties in Michigan. Paula D., how can I help besides educating my kids?
I'd say just spreading awareness. That's the biggest thing, is spreading awareness. If you have kids, obviously educate your kids, but your family members, your neighbors with kids. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see kids just off in the corner by themselves on their phone. If you have kids and you see the neighbor has kids, have your kids play with them. Having that idle time on those phones or tablets, or you need that face-to-face interaction with kids. Getting them out there and just spreading awareness and keeping your eyes open.
And if you're in contact with young people and you see those dramatic changes in their personalities, be bold when you ask them, was something done to you? Ask the question. That doesn't mean that you're coaching them into making a sexual assault case against somebody. But if you see a massive change, you're the Bible school teacher, and you have some dynamic young child who's always answering questions, and then something has changed.
In their personality, their eating, their sleeping, their look.
Be bold. Ask, what's going on? What's going on in your life right now? Sometimes these young people will give it to you and tell you.
I would tell you this. My answer, no matter the age, is I would tell people who is allowed to touch you, who is allowed to see you, and nobody else is. We do that with kids. We walk our kids into the bathroom when they're younger, but all of a sudden we forget to say that as they get older. So I would even tell your adult kids, your people, say, listen, no matter what, whether you're 16 in your school or 17 or something, this is what you are allowed to do with other people. Do not try to be sextorted in. You don't have to send pictures of yourself. If there's something that you did that you need to talk about, I can't love you any less. You got to open up those doors. Just like we say, listen, only mommy and daddy, the doctor, if we're there, are able to touch you. Anybody else, you come to me. They need to know what they can and cannot do. So they don't think it's rude. So they don't try to minimize it. They don't try to take that shame in on themselves. So that's what I say is have those conversations, and we're going to continue to push on so they feel comfortable to come forward. So we have one more question. Tim G. Do you feel the internet has amplified the amount of predators pursuing children? Absolutely.
Yes.
I have an opinion on that, and that is, for years and years, we had secret rooms where you would go and purchase pornography. It was in the dark. Well, those folks always felt that they were by themselves, that they were the only people that had this sexual deviancy, whatever it was. And what they found through the internet is that there were so many people that were just like them.
Tribe.
And
Wow.
And so they were able to normalize this. They were able to normalize their behavior, and they seek out other people, like people, and then they start sharing these images. And then, again, when you have the sharing of child pornography, and that's how that expands also, because they know that they're not alone.
Now, child pornography, and I'll get to you in a second, that is underage children that are engaged in sexual acts or positions that even possession of is a crime. Certainly the movement of them, the trading, but distribution, manufacturing, that's a life offense. Child pornography is the impetus to acting out in many cases. And what I've seen is the internet is the pornography industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and with that are all those dark areas that Dave talked about, because it made it so accessible. And then when you have isolation, when you have the accessibility, it just, as I said, it just fertilizes the fields. Thoughts?
I agree 100%. In social media now, I mean, before, the predator was on the playground. The predator was in the van. The predator was maybe the neighbor, and it still is, all those things. But now it is so easy. They can go on the internet. They can go into chat rooms.
Yeah.
They can just go on social media. I mean, I can go on Facebook right this second, and I can find a vulnerable child or teenager just by what they're posting.
Yeah.
And they can just slide on in and say stuff.
And not only
it's
that,
so easy.
you can get porn on Twitter,
Oh, God.
Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook,
It's on Facebook.
Instagram.
Yeah.
You could search it. You don't even have to go to a porn site. So to answer your question, absolutely, it's out there. So we just need to know, what do we do to protect those? Because it's not going away. And it's something that is part of our civilization. You just need to protect yourself just as much as natural disasters and other things that plague our society. So we just want to say we're going to wrap up here with final thoughts. And I'm going to start with Dave on his final thoughts, Tori, and then I'll wrap up. But we want to thank you. This is an hour on this day, the 9th of February 2021, because it is the National Internet Safety Day, this day. And we're going to do more of these, but we want to get the information out. We have spent hours on production content to figure out what will send the best message. And unfortunately, we've got hundreds and hundreds of cases to choose from. So I hope that you use the content to educate you, your people, and those that have yet to be discovered. So you know yourself. There's no reason to say, I just didn't know. And that's what my hope is. So before we close, I want to say thank you. And now we're going to have our final thoughts. Dave Dwyer.
Well, first off, it was an honor, Sheriff, to be asked to speak. And when I was asked to do this, I already started thinking about my final thoughts. I didn't know I was going to have a final thought, but I was thinking of it. This topic is emotional. It's feelings. But in law enforcement, we also have to be social scientists, and we need to know data. And when I thought about how do we protect our young people from being victims by predators, well, I became a social scientist. I wanted to use numbers, data. We know that over 90% of our victims are victims from people that have power and authority over them. They are relatives. They are somebody that has some sort of intimate community with that victim. And this is painful. We also know that over 90% are men. This is a man's crime. This is the truth, and we need to speak truth. You want to protect your child? When you go out for a movie with your child is statistically safer to have the babysitter be the young teenage girl down the street, then your brother, then your father, then your son. I speak truth because I've held the hands of brothers, sons, dads, grandpas, as they cried in shame because they sexually assaulted somebody for their own pleasure. This is a man's crime. There's exceptions, but we know the data, and that's that.
I was just saying, I said it earlier, is stop telling your children, be nice, be polite, because so many kids don't come forward, or because they don't want to come off as rude, or they don't say no because they want to be polite. Because that's what you've taught your child. I mean, if you think back on it, be nice. Or there's, Uncle Rico. She's like, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to hug him. Go be nice to him. Stop doing that. Tell your child it's okay to not be nice. It's okay to not have everybody like you. And that's the big thing that I see, is that kids are doing things, they're sharing photos, they're doing things that they would
want
never
followers,
do. They want followers, but they don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. So if I just do this, if I just give them this photo, we can go back to playing games. And that's not what's happening. So stop telling your kids that be nice. Let them know that it's okay, and just trust their instinct. And everybody should have boundaries. Every child should have boundaries. Respect your child's boundaries. And if your child tells you something that I don't feel right, or I don't like being around this person, respect it. Listen to it.
And I will tell you that we did this to save lives. Most of the victims that we've talked about in our cases, they didn't die, but their lives were changed forever. And if we can keep the crime from happening, then we win. We want victims out there right now to feel empowered, to feel like you have a voice, that there are sheepdogs out there that are going to find the wolf. And we will protect you. And while you protect your flock, we will be the voice that gives you strength. If you find that this conversation is hard, or you talk to somebody about this and they indicate that they've been assaulted, they need help, be the sheepdog in your life. Be the protector. You have that ability. There are so many different places that you can go for help. You can call 911. You can seek somebody you know, somebody you trust. But every day that goes by that predators aren't held accountable, they win. And that's not why we're here. We're here to give you a voice and protect people, save their lives. Thanks to Tori Dallas, to Dave Dwyer, thanks to the production crew, thanks to our media friends, Mid-Michigan Now, WNEM 5, ABC 12 News, all those are live streaming it right now. Thank you from people all over the country and around the world. We hope that we gave you value tonight. And if you need anything, you call Sheriff Swanson and I'll help you. Have a good night.